Yo guys, Vision Gen here, back with more Battlefield 6 content. In today's video, I just wanted to share some gameplay, more gameplay for the Battlefield 6 beta weekend number 2, using all of the ARs, all of which I basically had a blast using, and just wanted to share some cool clips from playing the maps, modes, and just a little overview, I guess, of the game so far, with my thoughts on the game overall, the beta, the franchise, and the direction of this iconic title, and what it could potentially be, hopefully, in the near future. So, on that note, let's get right into things. So, I guess, first things first, as a general overview of the beta, I think so far the game has been so much fun. It's been incredible. Visually, it's amazing and pure cinema. The map and mode dynamics, which I think have been overall successful, and so far, in my opinion, with the variety of different sort of fast-paced, close quarters, ranged and elevated gunfights and battles with your team and the enemy team, it has been super fun to say the least. The gunplay is really good. I did mention in my previous video that I did sort of take some time adjusting from COD to Battlefield in itself again, but also spending some extra time in the firing range to try and maximize my overall experience of this beta, sorting out my sensitivity and all that sort of stuff, but so that I, of course, can shoot straight, because that's very important in this game, especially when you're sort of taking different gunfights from close quarters all the way to range gunfights. So just bear that in mind. Now, just quickly, I did just mention Call of Duty there. I just want to quickly touch on that. I appreciate this is a Battlefield gameplay video, but just quickly on Call of Duty, for anyone that is a Call of Duty player and returning to this game, or sort of playing this game for the first time, this is, of course, very different in many different ways, but of course, there are so many similarities as well with it being a sort of first-person shooter and a war sort of time shooter. Of course, with it being Battlefield in itself, the movement is not going to be as fast as COD, but of course, in this game, there is definitely advanced movement versus previous different titles, which I have played all throughout the years. Just to give you guys a quick overview, I have played Battlefield for a long time. I am not a new time player to Battlefield, so I would like to think that I know a little bit of what I'm talking about to a degree. Of course, I do play a lot of Call of Duty. If you guys weren't aware, in case you guys haven't seen the channel, there is Call of Duty content I produce on a weekly basis. But what I was saying about adjusting from COD to Battlefield, it definitely is weird because you're trying to adjust to the way that this game plays out, and of course the maps, the guns, the modes, all of that sort of different stuff. But at the same time, it also does feel familiar. There is similarities in many different regards. So if you guys are one of the many who are sort of not sure how they feel about the game in itself with regards to how it plays out, and you're maybe a bit uncertain on settings or on what to be doing in terms of which guns to use or whatever sort of stuff like that, maybe at the end of the video, if you stick around, there could be some advice that I give you guys. Like I said, I'm a long time player and I've played a lot of Call of Duty and stuff like that, so I know the difference between the two. And believe me, I do know that there is definitely a transitional sort of element in it that sort of takes place with trying to adjust to this game. But overall, of course, when you get comfortable, it does feel really, really fun. And game to game, it can, of course, vary, but for the most part, it is an incredible experience to say the least. Now, I did actually make a Battlefield 6 overview video previously, which is linked in the description below, which essentially is where I sort of shared my initial thoughts of the game, clips and cool gameplay, using all kinds of different weapons, etc., and a little bit about me as a gamer and Battlefield long-time player, as I said, for anyone new who maybe isn't aware. And of course, I think that is very relevant for any newer viewer who knows that they're actually watching a player who's both passionate about Battlefield and not just joining the bandwagon, of course, which many different players are. They're trying to lead Call of Duty because of the state it's in, but also maybe people that are just trying to catch the wave on Battlefield 6 being new and all that sort of stuff. It's not the case. I do love Battlefield. It's a new channel. I'm trying to grow a channel, and Battlefield just happens to be one of those franchises I absolutely love. But also, I guess I'm somewhat good at this game, which I think is fair to say. Hopefully, the gameplay shows that in itself. There, of course, is learning curves. I'm trying to use different weapons for the most part, and of course, different maps and modes can vary. But for the most part, I'd like to think I'm pretty good at the game, and hopefully, like I said, the gameplay speaks for itself. Now, back to this video, of course, and enough for myself. The gameplay, as I mentioned throughout the video, is unbelievable. The maps, the gunplay, the movement, and the vehicles, all incredible. My personal favorite guns of the beta overall were the M433AR, the M417A2, and the M4A1 carbines. But I'll be honest, there's so many good weapons I've used and enjoyed. So overall, I'd say they are all pretty much really good. The DMRs were my least favorite. Definitely, I'd say they're definitely my least favorites. But that's all sort of based on playstyle. I'm quite a fast-paced player. But now the main purpose of this video is to pretty much share gameplay, tips and tricks, and I guess loadouts that I've been using and I would suggest for the ARs, the assault rifles in the beta, to hopefully help some newer players with Battlefield or returning players who haven't played for quite some time for when the game officially releases in October, but also sharing actual gameplay of me using the weapons to show you that how good they can be and with various different attachments to suit your style. And I guess that is what I'm going to go over at the end, just briefly touch on the fact that the play style of who you are as a person and how you play the game definitely sort of is a key fundamental aspect that you need to consider when you're using your attachments. So the first AR I'll show in the video is the NVO-22AE, which is basically a faster fire rate, high mobility, and versatile assault rifle. I'd say this is perfect for sort of medium range maps such as Empire State or Siege of Cairo, and modes such as like Rush, Breakthrough, and stuff like that. But honestly, this gun is great, very well rounded in the most part. It does have some recoil issues, I'd say, that maybe for newer players or players who aren't that comfortable using ARs at long range with a fire faster rate, this would definitely be one of those guns that maybe you need to balance out recoil control compared to maybe other guns. But overall, with high mobility, this gun is great, and it far outweighs the maybe the downside that this gun could have with recoil reduction and stuff like that. But I would just say for me, I'd make sure that you use perhaps the ribbed grip, which basically is an underbarrel that will massively improve your recoil control. The extended mag always helps on any gun pretty much. A more medium or close range sight basically is how you want to play this gun. I wouldn't say use it at long range. If you're going to play long range gunfights, anything past maybe 50 to 75 meters or anything beyond, definitely probably don't use this gun. But for the most part, this is really good for sort of that building to building gunfights and those sort of like down the street gunfights. I'd say this gun is perfect perfect for that, and maybe even consider using maybe a suppressor to help you with flanking or playing more stealthy and stuff like that as well. Now, as for the second weapon, this is the second AR that was in the beta. This is the B36A4. This gun is wicked. It hits hard, definitely shreds quicker at medium to long range than the MVO, but basically has a slower fire rate and deals more damage. Now, this gun, it basically feels like the M8 assault rifle from Call of Duty for any COD fans out there. Of course, without the burst aspect, I do appreciate that it's not a, but this is not a burst weapon and the COD one is, but I don't really know what it is exactly, but they feel very similar when using, of course, like I said, other than the burst aspect itself, but with regards to mobility and the way that the gun actually fires, it just feels very similar. Again, I'd say use a more medium range sight with a more versatile underbarrel that's going to basically improve your ADS speed and maybe look to improve your mobility overall if you're a more faster sort of pace player. But of course, if you're just trying to sit back and play more slow, then definitely utilize the fact that this gun is really good, hits hard, and absolutely beams, especially, like I said, if you're playing slower and you're already mounted up. If you start moving around, this gun can obviously have a bit of a kick to it, but like I said, it basically it has less mobility than the MVO, but rewards good shots, especially when you factor in your time to kill. And then, of course, again, always consider using an extended mag, as that always helps, especially if you find yourself coming across multiple enemies at a time and you need to sort of reload on a fairly consistent basis. Then definitely consider an extended mag, or even maybe a faster mag if you notice that the gun is just reloading too slowly and you cannot get back into the fight quick enough. Therefore, just maybe consider that as well. And then finally, the M433, arguably the best gun in the game overall from the beta, the perfect hybrid basically between the two AR so far, with a fast fire rate, good mobility, very accurate with great recoil control and ammo capacity as well. I personally love the holographic sight. That's like one of the just my personal preferences, but again, the underbarrel always helps and allows this gun to absolutely beam, and with an extended mag, this gun can basically take out multiple enemies, an entire squad almost, if you are accurate and hitting your shots. And of course, make sure you adjust your attachments to suit your playstyle, which then leads me nicely onto this final point. I guess what I wanted to just add, that basically make sure you are looking at your loadout builds for weapons. Always consider your own playstyle first, rather than some other random person's build, or like this video, for example, whatever the stats show on the class or my sort of recommendations are. Make sure you factor in how you play the game first before you start picking around all your attachments, because it has to suit your playstyle. Of course, you can make it beam or whatever it may be, but if you play the game really fast paced and you're not looking for recoil control, then definitely don't do that, because you're not going to get the maximum benefits out of your way you're going to play it. Or, of course, change your playstyle to suit the gun's strengths and weaknesses. So if the gun does beam, maybe slow it down and use the gun from sort of longer ranges and utilize the fact that it actually shreds from distance or so on like that. Just make sure you're considering the playstyle before you start making all your different attachments and changing the gun, because you may find that certain guns, depending on the map, the mode, what attachments you use, will feel completely different compared to maybe what it could be, or maybe is, or what it could have been in the past. Just remember that, because there's so many people I've heard or read in forums over the years that basically don't factor this in at all. And I know this sounds probably really obvious for some people, but for some, this may be a bit of a surprise, and you may think, oh wow, I've just made that gun beam every single time. But really, you actually might want better ADS speed, better mobility, all of those sort of factors if you are a faster paced player, and so on. So apologies if you're teaching to suck eggs and you guys already know this stuff, but if anyone new who wasn't already aware and wasn't considering that, just think about it next time you make your builds and for the game when it releases. Now, I guess just quickly before I end this video, and I do want to add that please consider the map and mode you're playing before using your gun or class. I know, again, that sounds obvious, but it's crazy how many people just don't factor this in when you're using different guns. Longer range maps are going to require more accurate guns. For obvious reasons, you're going to take longer range gunfights, which means you have probably more cover. But I guess if you're moving out in the open, you're going to sort of require less mobility as a priority, rather than maybe having a gun that absolutely beams, because you're just going to sort of use guns from further ranges or whatever it may be. It's pretty obvious for the most part. So basically avoid maybe using subs or shotguns, unless of course you are going to be playing close quarters, or found certain areas on certain maps that basically allow you to play up close and personal. But look, I just wanted to add that because I think it's very important, again, as well as the attachments, because some people will use a gun and use it on every single map and not realize that the inconsistency maybe from their sort of all the feedback that they give the gun isn't necessarily about the team you're playing against, or the fact that it's maybe the attachments you're using. It could also be the map as well, so just bear that in mind. It's like I said, it's even for the 3 ARs so far, some are better from my own experience at different ranges or maps based on mobility, recoil control, and even the ammo count. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on the firing range and itself. For anyone struggling with their aim or the movement in itself and shooting in general, try and go into the firing range. I massively would recommend this. Adjust your settings first, your infantry aim sensitivity and your ADS sense. All of this will significantly help you, in my opinion. I'm definitely a more faster style player, so I play on like a higher sense, and then sort of make it easier to control recoil at further ranges by basically slowing down the ADS, the aim down sight sensitivity, which always helps me. Just as a little tip for anyone who is struggling, but when the game releases, in case you guys don't really know what the problem is, spend some time in that fire range, utilize it, because I promise you it'll massively help help you out and change the weapons you're using. Go into your loadouts, press L2 on PlayStation, whatever you're on, and basically test out those guns. And before you start going to games, it's going to help you and massively improve your experience. If you have a gun that's better suited for you, and therefore you've adjusted to sort of play to suit to your play style and play to your strengths, you're going to have a better time overall. So just as a general tip for anyone that didn't really think about that, utilize it. It's there for you guys to practice, and you actually see how guns give for different feedback using different attachments and so on. Now, in summary, the beta has been so fun overall. I'd say it's definitely one of the best and most enjoyable experiences I've had of a beta in recent years. Overall, a success in my opinion. When the game comes out, there's going to be more ARs, so basically I'm probably going to make an update video in future videos on the rest of the ARs, but I do plan on creating more Battlefield content going forward, sharing more of the classes, different guns going forward, submachine guns, LMG, so on, all of that sort of stuff, different maps, modes, and more, so stay tuned in case you guys weren't aware. With that said, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it massively helps me out. I'm a small channel, and I'm trying to grow and trying to produce more content on a weekly basis for all different games on the channel. And if you have any suggestions for Battlefield 6 content that you want to see on the channel, or any cool clips, tips, or tricks that you basically want to share for any newer players or returning players, or even for myself, let me know down below in the comments and I'll get right back to you. I'm BF6. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.